Thank you for taking the initiative to organise this meeting. So this is my last opportunity to make a platform speech as an MEP to the EIF. So it was kind of you to set this up for me. But also I reflect on the fact that this is my third turn at being rapporteur on issues around universal services and particularly users' rights. I think I was just looking there to see who else was with me on that journey back in 2002 earlier, and I think Antonio Prieto was the main one, though of course he was my policy advisor in EPP at that time. But I think Nigel Hickson, where's Nigel Hickson, who was at that time working in the Department of Trade and Industry, was my interlocutor on the government side. Has anyone else worked with me in 2002 here who would own up to it? Oh, yeah, there are a few. Yes, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, there you are. Now, I say that because I just want to remind you all about something, and I always say this at the beginning of my speeches. Is if you look at the face sheet of the 2002 proposal, when Pablo Colasanti was Director General and Erkki Liikanen was Commissioner, those of you that can't remember that far back, it said quite clearly that the 2002 framework was intended to be a transitional legislative framework towards an electronic communication sector that will be governed by competition law principles. Now I say that to you because sometimes I wonder whether we've actually remembered that. And in all the work that I do and I've done, I hope that I've been pretty true to those sort of principles. So, in the context of this proposal, we've had a role as and we've worked very closely together with Industry Committee in a very productive relationship. And I think the two committees working together has always been a really good relationship because we have been able to focus on consumer issues in that context. And I think we've done a good job on those. So we had the opportunity presented to us by the Commission this time to look at some of the running issues on consumers and consumer protection issues because technology was advancing. I have to say it was slightly unexpected to get the opportunity to do it as early as we are in 2013, 2014. That was an unexpected opportunity. I hope you feel that we've used that wisely in doing some further updates and particularly reflecting on things that consumers are concerned about in the data-driven age, particularly about their expectations for data speeds and how those are reported, and having some common metrics, some common values, some reliability, some proper consumer comparative data. We've addressed other issues in contracts and other things, but that's been the principal area that we've worked on. So all of those things have been important. But the one thing that where we have taken a stand, I say on behalf of consumers, because of course we have a lot of experience in consumer legislation. We had a prolonged battle with the Commission previously on the idea of a fully harmonised set of regulations for consumer rights. And I know Roberto and I still continue to disagree about this, but we could not see any sense whatsoever in extracting from an existing directive some measures and making them into a rigid regulation that could not be updated and would tie the hands of the regulators. We see no consumer benefit for that whatsoever. And if the problem is that the regulators are not consistently delivering those consumer rights, that's where we have to tackle the issue at the level of the regulators. And actually, in consumer rights for electronic communications, we are far better placed than almost any other sector because we have dedicated national regulators close to the marketplace, applying a common framework of regulation, but being able, if necessary, to move quickly to deal with some issue that arises today or tomorrow, as they tend to do in this area. So we have entirely rejected what I thought was a rather extraordinary aberration on what is generally a good area. And with quite a lot of work, we have simply made these amendments to the existing directive. And I'm pleased that that was unanimously supported by every political group on my committee, was supported by a large majority by the Parliament, and almost every stakeholder has agreed with us. So that's something that we've done. Now, I would just conclude by saying a few words on this difficult issue about open internet access. And I just want to remind you also that when we did the revision in 2009, my committee put in place for the first time a series of measures that allowed regulators to intervene if they saw discriminatory behaviour by operators in favour of their own services by deteriorating quality of service. And those were in place in 2009, and BEREC has been operating them. We'll hear a bit about that later. This is not a new issue, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm in the process of moving house as part of my process of starting a new life away from Parliament. And so I have a whole archive of papers that I've been going through this week, and then lo and behold, I came across a draft 2006 bill from Congress to deal with net neutrality, which was never actually put in place, together with a whole series of 2006 papers from the Congressional Internet Caucus about net neutrality issues. You know, somehow we feel that this is some great new advance of delivering open internet access. And we somehow have to think we might have to legislate for something that might happen in future. I don't think we've ever done that in telecoms legislation. And I think we should be very wary about doing that in an industry in which we all know we don't know how things are going to evolve as quickly as they do. And the only reason I've really been persuaded that we need now to think about what I think should be a light touch framework, which would ensure that the open internet is delivered to all citizens, is because some member governments are poised or want to introduce their own national legislation. Now that will be the worst possible thing that could happen for a single telecoms market. So my conclusion about the way we've advanced on the compromise is that anything to do with net neutrality, we want the simplest and most legally clear solution that we can, which is absolutely going to deal with that issue and nothing else. And I would leave you with these closing words. On the net neutrality regulation, less is more. Thank you.